Before we begin, let's walk through our webinar platform together. Each of the buttons at the bottom of your screen relate to sections in the On24 console. The speaker view is where you will see our presenters throughout the webinar. The slide view is where you'll see the accompanying slides. You can resize these widgets for a larger or smaller view. You may also follow along with a PDF version of the slides that can be found in the Related Content widget. In the Related Content section, you can access any accompanying materials for this webinar. This includes a PDF copy of the slides and many times will often include related resources. Using the Reaction button, you can react to content throughout the webinar. Reactions from our audience throughout the webinar will float along the console screen. Use the Q&A section to ask questions directly to our speakers throughout the presentation. In the Speaker Bio section, you can find out more about our presenters, including their contact information. If you need technical assistance, please use the Help button below. Many times, technical issues can be resolved by opening the webinar in Google Chrome or refreshing your browser. Finally, the Evaluation button contains our post-webinar evaluation survey. Here is where you can share your commentary and feedback on the presentation. We hope you enjoy our free webinar. Now, let's get into today's topic.
All right, good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's presentation. Yeah, from noise to narrative. My name is Jen Banks, Director of YPTC's Los Angeles Market. And first of all, I just want you to know that I get it. So I have been the auditor looking at nonprofit financials from the outside. I've been the in-house finance person trying to explain the numbers to a board where everyone comes from different backgrounds and not everyone speaks finance and accounting language. And now at YPTC, I've had the opportunity to work with many nonprofits as a consultant, and I see the same challenge everywhere, and that is that how you present your data really does matter just as much as how you collect and track it. And that is exactly why we're here today. And I am so pleased to introduce you to my colleague, Alicia Eastfold. She's our data visualization expert, and she is going to change the way that you think about your charts and reports. So Alicia, I'm going to hand it over to you to introduce yourself.
Well, hi, everybody. It's nice to see all of you. I wish I could see everybody that's in this room because I know there's a lot of you here today from lots of different backgrounds. We've got accountants, we've got nonprofit leaders, just people interested in data storytelling. My story, I started my career in accounting, not in accounting. I was actually a teacher before I became an accountant, but what I loved was stories. I loved seeing the stories behind numbers and the ways that you could translate that to action. And it led me to a career in serving a nonprofits and helping them find their stories and their financial information. I'm also a technologist. I love the way tech can help you get data, the way you can organize it well, especially accounting information, so you can actually use it and spend less time trying to organize it. So that's a big part of what I do at your part-time controller, is helping nonprofits think through those pain points. So.
Awesome. And like Alicia said, we wish we could see everybody, but just want to let you know that my job today is really to be your voice in the room. So I'm going to try and ask some questions that you might be thinking. I'm going to share some stories. Alicia might be putting me on the spot a little bit. I might put her on the spot a little bit, but we're really going to try and make this as interactive as possible. But first, just a little reminder as to who we are as an organization. So we are your part-time controller, affectionately known as YPTC for short, and we are a professional services firm specializing in nonprofit financial management. And we have been around for more than 30 years. Our services include a wide variety of things: accounting, reporting, data visualization, best practices, audit prep, all sorts of different things. And we have a network of over 800 staff, and they really have seen it all. And they are serving our amazing nonprofit clients all across the country. Alicia, I'll hand it over to you.
They really have seen it all. As quite a bit of it too, Jen. All right, I want to start with this premise today to kind of just set the stage. You have important information to share. I want you to think of yourself like a hunter and gatherer, or maybe like a farmer. Whatever your role is in your organization, whether it's a nonprofit or it's an accounting firm or whatever it is, Your job is you're out in the wild. And as you're doing that, you are gathering insights. These are things that you know your organization really needs so that it can do better work. But more often than not, we bring that insight back to our audience and they just don't see it the way we see it. We try so hard to explain it and it falls flat and it gets buried in complexity and lost in translation. But the challenge is that our communities, whoever our audience is, whether it's the leaders of our organization, if you're a nonprofit, maybe it's your funders or your community, they need more from you. They need you to be more than a hunter and gatherer that plops information on the table. They need to help digesting it. They need you to be a farm and fork chef. So that means that we carefully prepare and present on the plate a fine dish that's made for them. And that is the art of data storytelling. That's what it's all about. And in the age of AI, which I love AI, and if you saw my LinkedIn post, I had a whole thing on how I used AI to help build these charts today. But I believe that data storytelling is one of the most human things that we can do. And today I want to show you how. We're both going to show you how.
Yeah, I completely agree. So before we dive in, just going to go over our learning objectives. So first, we are going to help you identify your data story by defining your audience, your action, and that one big idea. And then second, we'll help you choose the right chart for the data story that you need to tell. And then finally, you'll have the opportunity to work on refining your visualization by removing clutter and really focusing attention on where it matters. And I just want to mention as well that this webinar is a little bit different from the ones that we typically do. It is highly visual. It is going to be very focused on bringing to life the key principles that we're covering today. So you're going to see a lot of graphics, and some of these are going to be very effective, really great examples, and others will not be so effective. But this is very much going to be a hands-on interactive session. We're going to ask you to do things with the information that we're sharing. So please go ahead and grab a piece of paper, grab a pen, a pencil. You don't need to be on a computer. This is not super technical, but we've seen a lot of webinars and we just really wanted this one to be more of an experience. And when you write things down and when you participate in the exercises, that's going to help you remember the content and really solidify it in your mind. Right, Alicia?
That's right. And that's the part I'm most excited about this webinar. So get your pen and paper out. And Jen, like we said earlier, your job is to be the audience. I want you to stop me if anything's confusing or I stumble over the words or just something's not clear. I know you're going to be reading the Q&A as we go along too. We really want this to feel as much as we can like we're all in a room together. And I know that's hard and I wish we could be. So hopefully this helps. I want to see you use those reaction buttons. We can see them too. And it helps us know, like maybe you can even, I don't know if you can give thumbs down at times or thumbs up just to help us know that you're tracking what we're saying and you're like, yes, this hits, or, oh, I see heart. Thank you so much. Like an Instagram live. I know it's not that, but let's do our best to try to feel like we're all one group together today.
Awesome. Yes, look at those reactions. Awesome. Thank you so much. And Alicia, that's a great point. I'll just let everyone know I am going to be monitoring that. Yeah, we will be looking at the Q&A throughout. So we will try and answer some questions as we go along. We're also going to have time at the end to answer questions as well. Good. So yeah, thank you for all those amazing reactions.
I love that there's like new emoticons. I expect some interesting ones in here. Like a shock. I don't know what that means, but we'll find out.
Yeah.
Okay, so I want to frame us for a minute here and say this. If you have struggled to communicate your data stories well, it is not your fault, because we all know nonprofits are inherently ridiculously complex because they have so many different expectations and different audiences that they have to report information to. So we've got the community, we've got funders, we've got the board, we've got the internal group. So even if you're not a nonprofit in this room, just know how complex that is. And if nonprofits can figure this out, you can figure this out. And then we've got this other challenge, which is just the day and age that we're in. Data is now at our fingertips. That's really cool, but now we are buried in it. There's too much. And on top of it, oh yeah, I'm seeing thumbs up. On top of it, tools like Excel, when you go and pull open a chart, they are just buried with complexity and they're really hard to use. And so a result of that is that when we explain our information, our reports and our data looks more like an inaccessible entrance than a welcoming invitation to engage. And that's what all this data storytelling is about. So our work at YPTC, we serve so many thousands of nonprofits who need this meaningful information because it's going to change the world. Everybody who's doing all this work, when they can tell their data stories well, it changes the world. It makes a difference. And we have seen firsthand the difference between a poorly designed visualization and one that's made well. And today we're here to share our secrets.
Yes. And Alicia, I just want to go back to what you said about nonprofits being inherently complex. And we have so many different audiences. And I'm just curious, in your experience, what have you found is the audience that we as a nonprofit organization might struggle the most to communicate data really effectively to? So is that the board? Is it the funders? Is it the public? The internal stakeholders? What do you think?
Ooh, that's good. Well, I kind of want some thumbs up from other people here to tell me. So I'm going to list them off again, and you can thumbs up if you think this is a hard group to report for. A nonprofit board, trying to get them information. We got any thumbs up on that one? Okay, maybe they're easy. How about funders? How about reporting information to funders? Also easy? Okay, maybe everybody's taking a coffee break. Internal team? Okay, here's what I would say, Jen. I think all of these, okay, I'm seeing more thumbs up. Maybe internal teams are hard.
I think we have a little bit of a delay, Alicia. That might be why we're having a little bit of a delayed reaction, but that's okay.
Good to know. I'm just seeing lots of thumbs. Let's just all agree that every single one of them has something hard about it. And most of what's difficult, I think, Jen, isn't like the format. It's that every single one needs something different and it keeps changing. So getting in tune with what they need to hear is the hard part. It's where the work is, where the human work is. So I personally think every single one of them is hard because they keep shifting and they all need it crafted a different way. When you get really good at it and you do it a lot of times, you'll learn there's certain types of questions that each of them ask, but you still need to fine craft it to what they need.
Absolutely. And I just want to note, we're getting some answers actually in the Q&A here, where some people are saying all of the above. Yes. Someone else said inexperienced board members. Absolutely.
Totally.
Yeah, I think like I mentioned at the beginning, not everyone kind of has that finance and accounting speak or really understands how to read financial statements. But yes, lots of people saying all of the above. And I just want to challenge everyone to really think about each of these different audiences and really kind of hone in on the one that you do really want to communicate the most with, and think about a story that you want to tell that audience. So if you have that in the back of your mind as we go through the content today, that's going to be really helpful.
In fact, write it on your notepad if you can. All right. So I posted on LinkedIn, it was late last night, early this morning, but I've posted a few times this picture from Anthropic. They just released it this winter, and it's around the total potential exposure that AI plays to various professional sectors. Jen, how fast can you figure out how much this impacts you?
Not very quickly. There is a lot going on here with the circle and all of the different words around it. You literally have to take your head and go around to figure out what industry you most identify with. The legend is really small. I have no idea what those colors mean. It's just really odd. It's very hard to find out what the story is here.
I love your face as you're doing it, like you're kind of nodding and smiling, like, yes, kind of, because I think this is what people do. They look at this, they're like, am I supposed to understand this? I should understand, right? And
Anthropic made it, right? It's like, if this was done by AI, then we should be able to understand it.
I actually used Claude to fix Claude's report. It was really fun. So if you want to go watch the video on how I did that, it was super fun. But we should be able to understand this. But it's like that foreboding, intimidating door. And underneath it is buried this really critical information that our world really needs right now. I can't think of a more important thing when this is told clearly that it can help us. There's so many insights from this. And that is why data storytelling is so important. The right chart made for the specific audience with a specific purpose is powerful. And in just a few seconds, if it's done right, you can find a story. And the audience is going to light up with understanding and go, I get it. And they're going to be moved to action.
Yeah.
So let's take a little transformation of this. Here's another way to see that same exact information. It's just displayed as a stack bar chart. I took a few of the categories out because there's 22, and I just made this simpler. Just by changing the chart type, this is immediately more accessible to engage with. And in just a few moments, you can kind of understand a story. But let's tell a specific story. This is just the visualization. We're not done yet. Let's tell a specific story to an audience here. So why don't we pick social services? Because so many of our nonprofits serve in this capacity. With a good chart and some good technique, I can draw attention in and tell a story. Compared to nonprofits, they've got a lot of human work that's going to remain after AI potential is reached. How cool. But also, look at the difference. They're at 8% right now, and they have 44% more to go. They're really behind in their usage of AI. We could tell this story a different way. What if we don't need a chart at all? We just need a big number, 8%. That's how much of AI's capability, social services is actually using today. And the problem is, this is a sector where many of you are working and where you are at max capacity. You're doing some of the hardest, most human work out there. And if I was to think of a group that needs technology to help with that, this is the place where you would want to leverage it. That's why data storytelling is so important.
Yeah, absolutely. And Alicia, I can just speak from my experience and certainly the clients out here in Southern California. I know so many that are so interested in how to really start integrating AI and take advantage of some of those efficiencies and extra brain power that they can get to do their work better, because people are stretched so thin right now. They are wearing so many hats. They are focused on delivering their services. And that's not to mention some of the general concerns around security, reliability, trust in AI right now. But I think the great news is, at least in terms of the topic that we're talking about here, is that you don't need to be a technical expert to tell really great stories with data. So we really just need the right tools. We need a solid framework. And that's exactly what you're going to keep walking us through today.
That's great. And I'll say I'm going to keep riffing on different things that we can tell from those stories. I might have a few more posts on that, but if you're interested in how I used AI to build charts, it would be a fun LinkedIn post to check out. So, all right, here's the story. We're going to give you the formula here for telling a good story with your data. First is you need to figure out what story you want to tell. Next, you got to choose the right chart and visualization. And then finally, you need to refine it. You got to remove clutter and focus attention. That's it. Now, this all sounds really simple. Maybe you're like, okay, I already know all of these things, but maybe don't say it like that. But we want to give you some practical advice on each of these steps. And if you already know it, this is a great chance to practice. So again, remember your audience, because that's who we're going to focus on today.
Yes, and we're going to have some ways for you to practice this as you go. So just one more reminder, because we've got some exercises coming up very soon. So just go ahead and grab that piece of paper and your pen or pencil if you haven't. And again, these are very straightforward, going to be easy exercises, but we really want you to walk away with something that you can really use after this.
Great. All right, let's dive into finding a data story to tell. So one key distinction that is really important to make before we tell stories is that there's different ways you can engage with data. So there's exploratory mode. This is like you're hunting and gathering or farming, right? It's when you're out in the wild exploring what data you have and what it's telling you. And this happens in your day-to-day work, and it's about making data accessible. So sometimes we do this through like a dynamic dashboard or just a simple chart so that you could see the information clearly. That's a part of the process we're not going to cover today. Today, our focus is on the explanatory side. It's when you've sorted out the data, it's easier to see, and then you recognize a pattern and there's something important to share. That is when it's time to tell a story with your data. All right. The first step in creating a good chart is figuring out why you're even making one. I cannot emphasize this point enough. So many times we get to share charts with our audiences before we've even figured out what we want them to do with our information. But if you get clear, it's going to impact every design decision you've got from here on out. But so many skip it. So how do we do this? First, I want you to think about a specific audience for a data story that you want to tell. Who needs to know your information? And I want you to get really, really specific. Make them a real person. In fact, they should have a name. Figure out their quirks and their interests, maybe their coffee order, how they approach information, how they use a computer, how they look at things. Figure out what they care about and how they communicate. It's really, really important. And the more specific you get, the better it gets. Next, I want you to think about what you want this person to do after they see your data. Because once they see it, they have to have an expected action. Maybe it's something they need to decide or change or support. And then finally, you've got to put this in one simple sentence. And this is harder than you think. Most stop short and they label the data, but that is not enough. You need to have somebody do something with the data that you've got. Let's see. So let's see this in action. I want to give a little example here. So you got a table on here, and hopefully our audience is comfortable with tables like this. This is a lot of information. I've organized it. I'm the hunter and gatherer. I've laid it on the table. We got to cook. It's a funding forecast for a nonprofit that runs a homeless shelter and a food kitchen. And they get funding through individual donations and grants. And I want you to take a minute and observe any noticeable patterns that you see worth mentioning, and just write down a few. I see some, write down a few. And while you do, Jen, any thoughts from you? What do you observe?
Yeah, so when I'm looking at this table, when we can see on that top line, grant income is steadily increasing. And this is really positive, especially in today's environment where we've seen a lot of pauses or freezing, of government grant funds. However, our individual donations, they're declining pretty significantly year over year. So they were at 460,000 in year one, and that is right down, to just being projected at 163,000 approximately. And we can also see that we have a really big funding gap here of over $200,000. So even though the picture might look good on the surface, we're really seeing income increase. Our expenses are increasing at a faster rate, and one of our sources of revenue is in a very steady decline. And I think this is also just a perfect kind of picture of what we're really seeing on the ground right now, yes. Right? This is a time where the sector is really struggling to keep up with community needs, and we're really relying on that private philanthropy, which is not quite making up the gap, so to speak.
Yeah. And Jen, you've seen this personally in the Los Angeles area with just recently with the fires that have happened and just the impact on all of that. We're gonna touch back on that later. Okay, so like we said, individual donations down year over year. We got costs that aren't funded. So let's now practice making a big idea from this. So we need an audience, and we're gonna make one up today. We're gonna start with a fundraising team, okay? I want to remember that we need to get specific. So we're going to give the leader of this fundraising team a name. Her name is Jane. She is passionate. She's a recent college grad that just loves this organization, and she's committed to it, and she is great at storytelling. She's also in charge of all the details for the events, and including a gala that's coming up, and she's pretty overwhelmed, okay? She's not an event planner so well. But this gala, it gets a lot of individual donations. And she's in charge of all the messaging, but she's struggling with all that's going on. So what is Jane going to care about? And what call to action do you think that Jane should have? So I want you right now to go and maybe take a shot at it. But we came up with an example for you to see. Maybe Jane needs something like this. Individual donations are $221,000 short of needed funding. Gala messaging is critical for closing this gap. Short, to the point. We know Jane is a fast communicator. She's busy, and we get her right to the point. She needs to raise $221,000. She's got to use the gala to do it. That's an example of how you would write a story for that.
Awesome. Okay, so now that we've just walked through that, Alicia walked us through the formula, and now it's your turn. So I want you to think about a real data set that you work with regularly. Maybe it's your monthly financials, it might be your grant tracking report, it might be impact data like program outcomes, and really think of that one specific person who needs that information. And like Alicia suggested, give them a name. Really think about what do they care about? What is going to actually motivate them to act? What do you want them to do after seeing it? And we want you to write that down in one sentence, like we showed in the example before. I know it's really tricky to be that succinct, but once you've got your big idea, just send us that thumbs up reaction, so we know you got it, and then we'll move on.
While we're waiting, Jen, do you have any experiences with this yourself?
Yeah, so there was one that really came to mind that hit very close to home for me. And that was, we had a client that was providing after school programs for underserved youth, and they were up for a major grant renewal, and they had put together beautiful data, really nice table, but it was much more detailed. They were showing every line item across every program for 3 years. And the grant officer came back and said, we can see that you're doing a lot, but we can't tell if it's working. So once we helped them really pull out that one big idea, what we found was that the cost per participant had dropped like 30% while the enrollment had doubled. So it told a completely different story. And what that big idea was, we're getting more efficient and we're reaching more kids.
Yes.
And in this case, the grant wasn't just renewed, they actually expanded the funding because that one big idea was really shared so clearly in such an impactful way. And we're getting lots of thumbs up here. So I think people have got their idea.
And I just can't emphasize enough that good storytelling leads to so much positive movement for what you're needing. And this is such a great way to do it. Okay, so with that big idea in mind, it's now time to choose a chart to visualize it. But the problem is there is a lot of charts. How do you know that you've picked the right one? This was my big concern. I know me and Jen, we learned data storytelling together when we were first starting at YPTC. And I remember being like, which one do I use? Because every chart has a different job. And when you know what each can do, you're going to know which one you can use to tell your story. So I want to go through some of our options. So we're not gonna spend gobs of time on this. Maybe take notes. We'll have this in the handout, or you'll have the deck to look at later. But let's start with an overlooked graphic, which is the supersized text. This is great when you have one number you got to communicate. It's a graphic. Maybe you're celebrating or you're alarming with its size, but this type of a chart is really great at communicating one number. And the trick is to make the number really, really big and stick to one thing that you want to say. So like this one, 60,000 meals were served in our community. All right, now let's talk about tables. So tables are great if you've got a lot of different points of information that you need to display. And if you've done it well, and it's displayed well, it lets your audience scan. They can look through all sorts of information and look for patterns and comparisons. And I don't know, I'm an accountant, so I think in tables all the time. And they also really help with a mixed audience who's gonna have different things that they're gonna be interested in the data. But here's where they are not great. They are not great for live settings. Here's my thought on this, is that when your audience sees one, what ends up happening when you give them a big table, even like financial information? Jen, what have you seen in a boardroom when they get a really complex report, maybe in a table?
Yeah. Well, what ends up happening is everyone just starts scanning because they're trying to pull the big idea out for themselves, right? So they're just looking through that table, and the presenter might still be talking about the first row, and the rest of the audience is totally distracted and not listening. So I completely agree with your advice there.
Yeah. And we've all been in the room. We've probably been that person ourselves where we're like, hold up, stop the presentation. I need to understand this really specific thing. And it's not the direction that you as a presenter are going. It is so difficult. So for that reason, we recommend that you give those tables, you give that information ahead of time so that you can really direct the conversation. All right, next is line charts. These are great for comparing a change over time. Remember that word time. The goal is to show trends over time. Think about time when you see line charts. These are not good for categories of data or showing parts of a whole. If you do that, you need a whole other type of a graph. And what's great about these types of charts is there's a lot of real estate on them. Look how much I can label. I can label, I can add color and shading, and we're going to talk about that a little later. All right, next is bar charts. These are the workhorse in the data visualization world because they work in so many instances. And this is because their main purpose is comparing things side by side. And when did we start comparing shapes side by side, Jen?
Oh, well, I'm just thinking about my two daughters when they were toddlers
Yes.
and they had the little bucket with the cutouts, with the shape cutouts, and they had to fit the right shape in the right hole. So
Yes.
yeah, we've been doing that for a really long time.
Yes. But not only that, like I remember doing that. I remember my daughter who was born today, 15 years ago. So I became a mom. I'm aging myself or something, but I'm just thinking about her. She was playing with the same toys. Like we all know these. So when you use a bar chart and it has shapes comparing things, you're giving everybody a 40, 50-year start, however old they are, minus a couple years to understanding your chart. That's why they're so effective. And even with the bar chart, there is some different types of bars that you can choose. So let's talk about the differences. First one is you can flip it on its side and be a horizontal bar chart. So a lot of data storytellers really like bar charts, and I want to show you with an activity. So Jen, I want you to be very dramatic with your head, and everybody else, you can do the same thing. I'm going to ask you to use your head dramatically to find the information on both charts so you can see how hard it is to find things. So we're going to start with the one on the left. So you're going to start on the top, right? We kind of start like we're reading a book. And I'm going to ask you a question. On the side on the left, can you tell me, show me with your eyes and your big chin, or not, your chin's not big, you know what I mean? The big chin movements, Jen. Tell me how you get to this answer. Okay.
Okay. What am I looking for?
How many participants like gardening?
Okay. I've got to go all the way down and I finally get to 10.
Good. I saw lots of movement. Lots of movement. Okay. So now let's do the horizontal axis.
Okay.
And on the horizontal axis, you want to do this. I'm sorry. I'm still giggling over the last comment. Okay. Horizontal axis. How many participants like underwater basket weaving? How long does it take for you to find it?
Yeah, 12. You can see that immediately. It is so much easier to find what category you need to look at when the words are stacked like that.
That's illustrating the point here, right? It's easier to read a horizontal bar chart because you can skim and get the information really fast. So that's part of why we like them. Another type that we like are stacking bar charts, and these can be horizontal or vertical. The point of this graph is to show two things. It's the bar, it's a total plus a subcomponent. Now, it can be really tempting to use a lot of subcomponents, but that can get overwhelming for your reader. So instead, we recommend breaking out just one. I know it's tempting. You're going to want to include like 15. Pick one. Pick one thing you want to break out and put it on the bottom of the chart because it makes it easier to compare. You can see more clearly a comparison.
Alicia, I've got a really interesting comment here. Someone said for the previous part, the bar chart would be even cooler with graphic icons for the categories.
Ooh, I like this.
That's a great idea. Yeah.
Love that
yes.
idea.
I love that. And then someone else just said it's been ages since I've heard underwater basket weaving. So that was a fun one.
I aged myself. I remember that being a joke in high school. And then recently I was like, I actually would really enjoy underwater basket weaving. I think that would be really fun.
Very calming.
I digress. All right. So you can also do a 100% stacked bar chart. This is unlike the standard on the left that shows amounts. The other one shows a percentage of the whole. And sometimes you need both. They both have their values, and it just kind of depends on what your story's about. Okay, we're saving the last for last. Let's talk about the pie chart. I did not call it best for last. I'm not calling this a workhorse because it's got some challenges. And Jen doesn't even know the answer to this. She did not prepare, but I'm going to ask all of you from this pie chart. Can you tell me which group uses pie charts the most? And I guess everything's a little bit delayed, so I can't really tell. If you think it's kids working on science projects, put a thumbs up. All right. I think it's either delayed. I don't know. Next would be bakers. Do you think bakers is the biggest one? All right. I'm seeing some smiles. Data storytellers, we know, isn't it? Or everyone else. Jen, what do you think? What do you think the answer is?
I have absolutely no idea. I really don't. You can't tell. You just can't tell from this.
You cannot. skip the 3D because look how off this is. The blue one is actually the biggest. Okay, so first off, just skip the 3D. It distorts everything and it doesn't make things easy to read. Okay, but even still, you'd be like, okay, why even use a pie chart? Well, pies are hard to see comparisons of shape. If we just made this a horizontal bar chart, look how much easier it is to see. Do you see why we like our bar charts so much? Pie charts can kind of kick it to the road, in my opinion, for most times. Now, there's one time I really like to use a pie chart. It's when you're showing one part of a whole like this. Maybe if you're showing it's one segment and it should be relatively small or relatively large. And we like to make it a donut because everybody loves donuts. So, and also
I think it's really good. Yeah, it's really the 3D that really distorts it, for sure. And I think once you see the comparison, you can't unsee it. And I could never go back to using pie charts that way again.
I am ruined. I'm like a graphics snob now.
Yes. Okay. All right, so we're going to move on because we want you to practice. So now that Alicia has gone through all of the different types of charts, this is a little quiz time for you. So we've got 3 scenarios, and I want you to think about which chart type you would use for each one. So our first scenario here is you want to show your board that 95% of your funding is restricted. What type of chart would you use for that? Scenario 2, your program expenses are trending up over 3 years, and you need to show that in a very compelling visual. So think about what chart you would use for that one. And then finally, scenario 3, you want to compare 4 programs by total cost, and you specifically want to highlight the comparison between the personnel portion. So again, get out your piece of paper, your pen, just quickly jot down.
And there's no right or wrong. There might be a few poor answers, but there could be
Alicia, while everyone's working on that, there's a really good question here in the Q&A. Do you have any language recommendations for communicating to the board how important it is for them to give? Funders often suggest that they want to see 100% board giving. We are hesitate to mandate it, but we need more compelling language. So that's a really interesting one.
I need to answer this one.
Huh? Yeah, well, when I was, go ahead.
No, I want you to answer this one.
Okay. So when I was thinking about this, I kind of go back to scenario planning. That's another great presentation that we have available on demand. And we did some really great visualizations in that presentation, kind of showing best, mid case, worst case. And I think there would be a way to kind of extrapolate out this particular piece of it and to really kind of create a very compelling visual in terms of board giving and then how that impacts the program, or maybe covering overhead, like really like how that impacts infrastructure, because board giving is often going to be unrestricted. And that is exactly the kind of funding that we really need so that they can understand that real direct correlation. And then even looking at, if our board is not giving at this level, then we might lose X amount of grant income, and that goes in our worst case. So I would recommend maybe kind of combining that with scenario planning and then putting some visualizations behind that to really help your board understand. So that would be my advice on that one.
I like that.
Okay.
I really like
to probably move on.
Ways that people like maybe not just in funding, because that opens up who you can have on your board. There's people in your community that could be on a board, and maybe they don't have financial resources, but they've got creativity and talent that could help you just as much with fundraising or whatever you need to do. So I like that too. All right, let's keep moving.
Because a lot of times it's just about sharing. It's maybe about sharing your network as well. It doesn't have to be direct giving. Is how they contribute to the fundraising. Yeah.
All right.
Okay. First scenario.
Yeah, I landed on one number. You could have done also like you could do something like the pie chart with the donut, like we had in the other example. That's an example of ways that you could show that. All right. Next is program expenses trending up. That word trend, we know it means a line. Stick to the lines for trends. And then this one, it's a component. So we did like a stacked bar chart with 2 components to it. All right. Okay, it's time for the final part. This is fun. This is like, this might also age me. Marie Kondo. Does anybody know who she is? The art of tidying up. I love her so much. We can do this with charts, and that's what we're going to do today. We've chosen our charts. So imagine you've got your story that you chose in the beginning. I want you to even think right now of what shape chart would tell the story that you wrote in the beginning. And then think about everything we're going to talk about here. We're going to practice decluttering. I see so many thumbs up. I think it's a little delayed for us, but I'm assuming it means you all know who Marie Kondo is. And if you don't, she's just this lovely human being who likes to spark joy with things. So we're going to spark joy with our graphics. All right, I want you to think about your audience's attention span like a backpack. They have a short-term memory, and it can only handle so much information. And every mark that you put on a page is a load that they have to carry. And if there's too much in the backpack, what are they going to do? What are they going to do, Jen?
They're going to drop it. They're going to ignore it.
Drop the backpack. They're going to say, you know what? Can't carry it. And that means they're going to ignore what you have to say. It's information overload. So we got a table here. It outlines all the different ways, and you can come back to this. It's a great little idea for you of ways that you can either draw more attention or less attention to a chart.
Yeah. And Alicia, I just want to mention one quick thing before we move on. As we talk about making data accessible and telling stories with it, we can't forget about who is actually reading what we're creating. So things like color choices, font sizes, contrast, labeling. Just a little reminder that these aren't just design decisions, they're also accessibility decisions. So I want to just think about accessibility considerations there, because if your data story doesn't reach your whole audience, it is not doing its job. And we really want everyone in the room to be able to understand. And we can't go into too much detail, but just wanted to highlight that that's really important to consider as well.
Yes. All right.
All right. Yeah. Oh, sorry. So we're going to put this into practice again. So let's go back to the story of Jane and her fundraising team. And just think again about the tables and the data that we looked at, that we identified that really big decrease in individual donation income year over year. And that seems to be part of the reason why we now have this big funding gap and we can't cover our expenses. So we are really going to dig into those individual donations by month. We're going to pull out that big idea and really refine that story. So that's what we're going to do now. So Alicia, I'll let you take it away with our first, with our starting point here.
This is a really fun exercise. We're going to take an overloaded chart here that contains all of our individual donation data by month over 3 years. Year 1, year 2, and then our forecasted, we're in year 3. Now, this is a lot. I hope this feels like a lot. And if it doesn't, wait till you see where it ends up, because we're like Marie Kondo. We're going to take it all out of the closet, lay it out, and then figure out what we're going to put back in. So we're going to walk you through how to do that. But before we do, I want you to see if you can identify, we said there's a lot of marks that can help or hurt. If you were to declutter this chart, maybe write down really quickly, what are a few things that you would take out? See if you could come up with 4 things that you could take off of this chart. And then we're going to go through and you can see if you're on track. Maybe you'll think of other things too.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I think, yeah, well, let's go ahead and just
let's move on.
Because I think you can start the process while everyone's also thinking about it as well.
Let me cook. All right. First, let's take out the borders. That was a lot of information. We didn't need those borders around. I'm just already feeling like this is not as cluttered. Next, I want to take out the grid lines. I don't think I need them because I got all those labels there. Ooh, a lot more white space. I'm liking this. I still have a lot of numbers and increments, and the range is really large. My biggest number is 75,000. I've also got all those months and they're spelled out diagonally because they're so long. So let's fix all of that. Let's fix our X and Y axis and our range. Woo. So much better. I've updated my months on the bottom. They're short 3 letters. I've changed my number format on the y-axis. I've simplified the increments. I've zoomed in the range, but we still got a lot of number labels still on there, and I probably don't need all of those. So let's fix that too. Oh, so much better. Okay, now I've got the numbers inside the chart. I also widened the bars so they're easier to read. And this is looking better, but it's still a little busy for me. And what is this information looking like to you? This seems to be showing trends over time, Jen. What type of chart does that remind you of?
I think we need to go with the line chart here if we're trying to show the trend over time.
How do you feel that I planted that question and you already knew the answer? Not fair, but I think our audience.
You did a great job walking through it.
Yeah. Okay, let's go to the next one. All right, we got a line chart. I like this. It's a little bit easier to read. There's more space. I can definitely see the trends, but I got a few more things I can remove. Again, we're taking everything out of the closet. So let's fix our labels here. I've got the legend. It's down on the bottom. I'm going to put it right next to the line, and I'm going to put that title over on the left side where my eye is more able to see and read it. Okay, looking better. So much easier. Guess what else? I can keep taking more things out of the backpack. I'm having so much fun. I can take color out. Let's take all the color off of this. All right, we've taken almost everything out of the backpack without. Okay, I want you to now look at this chart and say, do you know what the main story is? You could probably make some guesses, but now we can do more to bring this together. Now that the clutter is out, kind of like when Marie Kondo takes all of the stuff out of the closet, it's time to we need to focus our readers' attention on the important information and put things back in. So before we put anything back in, I just want to look at what this chart says without any attention or focus given. Jen, what do you observe here?
Well, the biggest thing that my eye is looking at here is if we look at March over the past 3 years, you can definitely see that really big gap between year 3 and years 1 and 2. And then just in general, that year 3 line is not as high as years 1 and 2. But why is that? Can we add a bit more context for everyone here about why that might be?
This would be easier if you knew this organization, so I'm going to fill you in. Jane had to cancel the spring event, and it's because Jane's nonprofit's in Los Angeles, and this year was the year that their nonprofit was affected by the wildfires that happened during that time. They had to pivot because there was a huge need in the community. They had to cancel the big spring event, and they had to get all their staff, including Jane, they had to turn into programming people to help with the service community. And that's actually why their grant income went up earlier, but their donation income went down. What's so wild about me telling this story? I just want you all to know, we were coming up with this after we built the chart, but it's kind of amazing how pertinent this is because, Jen, isn't this a story that you actually saw firsthand with a lot of the organizations we saw?
Yes, this is exactly what we saw last year. Yeah.
Okay, so we got to tune out the noise. We've done that, but now we need to tune up the story. Our audience today is Jane and her fundraising team that canceled that fundraiser. We need them to see what changed, and we have to use some methods to help focus her attention. So we're going to use a few things, a few methods, color, intensity, patterns, labels, to help her focus her attention. So let's do that. Okay, first, we can add intensity to a color. We're going to make that forecast line black. That's the year we're focused on. Year 3 is the forecast. And we have actual data through March. I need to indicate that we're actually in March, and that I'm going to turn my forecasted area into dashed line. So let's go ahead and fix that. All right, so I just use pattern. Now I want to use color to help differentiate these lines. I'm going to use bright orange for the forecast here because that's where my story is, and orange is an alarming color, and I want to alert people. So let's do that. You can go to the next slide. Oh, I think she's there. Hold on. I'm going to just skip ahead there, Jen. Okay. Hopefully you can all see it. So hopefully this is looking better, but now we want to help explain these shapes. We can see some gaps. We've got March has that big funding gap, and also the year-end giving in December and November is significantly lower. So I'm going to label these things. I also want to label what a forecast versus the actual months are. So I'm going to put those directly on the chart. All right, I did that. You can see I've got the 54,000 less than the spring event, 35,000 less than the end. We're doing a lot of storytelling on the chart, but my chart is doing a lot of explaining. I can see the trends, I can see the important dates, and now it's time to use our words. This is where we're going to bring in our stories from the past. We got a new one for Jane here. It's for the whole organization too. So let's go to the next slide. We're going to show you how we do this. We have a big headline. The 54,000 spring shortfall can't be recovered. Individual donations have been declining for 3 straight years. So I'm trying to show we can't not just recover it, it's that we've got a trend over years. And the forecasts are showing we're not going to make this up. And then I have my call to action. We have to launch a new engagement effort to replace the spring event. Now, I could have said all of that without any visuals, but looking at that picture below with those words, it is so clear how much I need to rethink our strategy. And you think you could get a board activated to do that. And maybe it's more than them writing a check. Maybe it's getting them activated in the community are the ways that they help. The words and the pictures together tell a story that call our readers to action.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know firsthand, I remember when I was some of my first clients at YPTC, when we started incorporating visuals like this and people could really understand the information, they could see that big headline. It completely changed the conversation. I remember the first board meeting, I was in there maybe 15 minutes, before we kind of got the visualizations going. The second board meeting, great visualizations. And it was literally a 45 to 60-minute conversation that we were having afterwards. So it really does change the dynamic, and that call to action that then happens afterwards is pretty incredible.
So this is where we started, a visualization with clutter, no way to focus attention. And this is where we ended up.
Yeah.
It's a big change. And like we shared in the beginning, our world is full of important data stories that need to be told. It doesn't matter who you are today on this webinar, that message is for you. We have important data stories to be told. And taking the time to thoughtfully refine and craft those stories with graphics and words becomes a powerful tool that calls us to action. Before I go deeper, I want to make sure I want to point out a resource, and we're going to share it on another slide as we close. But I just want to make sure, if you haven't seen this book right here, this is by Cole Nussbaumer-Knaflick, and she's got a whole website and a ton of resources. I have learned so much about this idea of decluttering, focusing attention, telling stories from her. So I really recommend you check out her work and her website, because she's got some great resources. And she also has this practice book. I've been going through it, where it actually gives you really bad visualizations and you practice decluttering them. She does these challenges every month. It's just a really great resource. So I want to make sure everybody sees that.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, well, this has just been such an incredible session. And Alicia, thank you so much for making this so practical and so hands-on. And I just want to just really leave everyone here, with this thought that you already have important data, and your communities, your funders, your board members, they are really counting on you to help them understand it, just like Alicia said at the beginning. So we hope that you'll be able to use this formula, find your story, choose the right chart, refine it. And remember, you do not have to be a designer or really technical with these sorts of things. We have so many great tools that can help us. You just have to really care enough about your audience to meet them where they are. And if you need help putting this into practice, whether that's with your financial reports, your dashboards, your board presentations, that is exactly what YPTC is here for. And we have an amazing team that can help you do that. So if you have any more questions, we have a few minutes left. Feel free to put those in the Q&A so we can try and get to a few. And Alicia, while I'm having a quick look here, do you maybe want to just speak super quick about how you use, I know you talked about your LinkedIn post, but maybe just letting everyone know, kind of that, maybe just talking through how you created these charts using AI, using Copilot.
Yeah, that's a good question. And I would say, there's big questions right now about what AI replaces in our work. And I've been trying to exercise both the human side of what we do, as well as really leveraging AI in thoughtful, intentional ways. So you'll see in the video how I did that. I actually created all of the charts from today, as well as in the demo that I did live. I did without ever touching a cell in Excel or touching all of the settings on Excel charts, which I hate. I just find it was a really great exercise of seeing how it can help. And you can just see you run up to limitations where your expertise is going to be needed. And you think that you could take all of the concepts that we're sharing here and help build. I would recommend building a prompt that you save. And when you are going to build a chart, you could do that. You could use it to say, build it with these best practices in mind. But what AI is not going to be able to do is give the context of the organization, of the needs that they have, the call to action. That is a deeply human experience. And when it comes to sitting in a room and figuring out what does a group need, that is up to you. But you can leverage AI to help visualize it in ways that I'm still baffled by how much you can do. So, but
And
you
we
also
had
need
a question. Yeah, thank you, Alicia. Yeah, I really wanted you to have an opportunity to let our audience know that, because I thought it was so cool. But we have a question here that kind of ties into that. So should we include an action plan or remedy action on the variance, I guess, in the chart? What do you think about that question?
Yeah, I mean, it all depends on your deliverable and how you're presenting it. I like to really think of, there's so many ways that these numbers get shared. It could be that nobody opens your report at all. They never look at your visualization and you just need to use your words. I had to do that. I was presenting to Intuit recently and I had to share some research on what our nonprofits were struggling with in the product. And I had to have one specific number that I shared. And it got the room, but I had done my research and I knew I had it in the backup if they needed to look at the details. So sometimes it's with words, sometimes it's in a report. You need to really think of what way your audience is going to best hear it. And then think of the more dense it gets, the further in the back it is. So you don't lead with the dense, you lead with the clear and simple, and then let them ask more questions and you can give them more, because our brains just can't handle it. It's that backpack stuff. Sometimes we need to add to the backpack slowly.
Yeah, absolutely. And then this question here for bar charts, do you recommend we use grid lines, or would that be distracting to the audience?
Hardly ever.
So I think
Hardly ever.
Yeah,
I use labels in the bar chart, but there's sometimes that it's needed, but I tend to, try the Marie Kondo method. Remember, I don't know if you've seen her shows, but she has you take everything out of the closet and then you put things back in. That's how you should approach your charts. Take everything off that's indexing it and then add in slowly, and then ask yourself every time. All you have to do is ask, does this mark help tell my story or hurt telling my story? And again, it all comes down to what's the story that you're wanting to tell. Sometimes those grid lines are important, but most of the time I find they're not.
Yeah. Absolutely. I thought, it was great to really visually show that. And maybe this would be a good one to end on. What about organizations who have boards or leadership that are anti-AI or fundamentally opposed to the use of AI in the organization? And I'm going to let you answer this, but I'll say first of all that here at YPTC, we are using an enterprise version of Microsoft Copilot to just ensure that our data is very secure. We have AI use policies. We have a lot of guardrails and training and instruction for our staff so that we use it as responsibly as possible, and also so that we don't lose the human element of it. So everything that Alicia is talking about, where it is so important to keep a human in the loop, we want to make sure that we understand when it's appropriate to use it and when it is not appropriate. So do you want to just add anything else to that, Alicia?
Yeah. I mean, security is a big part. I think another is how it's training on your data. And another is, and that comes to security, but I think the other is just the conservation, like how it affects our planet. And I would say the more you have intention with how to design, the less brain power it's going to have to use to do something like what I showed. And I think every organization is going to we're all navigating how to use AI responsibly, both with the amount of energy it uses as well as the security side. And I think the best I'd say is get your systems in order, get your best practices already written down. Is going to help you be able to manually do that. Could take less time, but yes, it does use energy to use every single time you're making those transformations. So the more clear you are with what you need, the less energy it takes. On the energy side, there's so much more we could say about this. Maybe it needs its own separate conversation, but I hope this was helpful.
Yes, thank you. And we'll just go ahead and close it off for now. So to everyone who has joined us, and you have other things at the top of the hour, please feel free to sign off. Thank you so much for being here with us today. And we're going to stick around for another 15 minutes or so to see if there's any more questions that we can answer for anyone who wants to stay on for a few more minutes. So thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody.
Okay, let me see
Jen,
here.
see any questions still in the group?
Oh, someone asked, did you build an agent in Copilot to create these charts? Well, I'm sorry, that's me adding some context. The question was, did you build an agent? I'm assuming that means to build the charts.
That would be my next step. So I think of agents for repeatable work. So I'm not going to probably repeat creating this this presentation, but now that it's all formed, my thought is that I would take some of this and use it to help me. That would be an example of how I could build an agent from it. Yeah. So that it could guide me for the next time I'm doing my task. When you think of agents, I think sometimes we kind of get confused and we're thinking that we need like an agent, but what we really actually just need is a really explicit prompt instructions. And you can save those anywhere. You could save those in a Word document. So kind of think about there's different ways to use it, but that's how I kind of remember is just getting my processes really written out well.
Yeah, and it's really interesting because I was kind of exploring doing some agent building yesterday, actually, and Copilot even told me what the limitations were going to be. So I was asking if the agent could do certain things, and then it was being very honest with me about what it could and couldn't do, which I thought was really interesting. Yes.
And that's where you start burning through a lot of AI usage, which is tokens, which is energy. So getting very discreet with what you need and making sure that it's effective and a really good use of the time is important. However, I think right now, a lot of us are just figuring out what AI can do so we know how to use it in other business situations. So that was really the exercise last night with my with this data storytelling and seeing what kind of it could do with visualization. I think right now is a learning phase, but I think our long-term needs to be really intentional usage that leverages it only when needed.
Is there one AI platform that is better at making charts?
Ooh, that's a good question. So I didn't get to watch this yet, but Cole Netflix, so on my LinkedIn feed, she had a video that she just shared where she did some data storytelling in all of the different models, and she's going to talk about the results. And I cannot wait to watch it. I didn't get a chance to watch it this morning, but I think it's worth checking out. I think it's also keep in mind, it's how you prompt it. So I intentionally in the video that I did on LinkedIn, tried to not give it too much instruction in the beginning, just to kick the tires and see what it could do. In the example, I use Claude because that was my personal computer, but I think it's worth trying. You should be experimenting with that to see, because it's kind of like different personal assistants. Different personalities are going to be good at different things. And we need to kind of think of these AI is like a resource that each of them is going to be strong at one thing over another. And you might need more than one for different tasks.
Yeah. So. Well, and also each of the large language models are coming out with new tools all the time. So like Claude recently released Claude Design. So these tools are going to evolve, and it might be that you find you're working really well with Copilot, really like what it's putting out, but then maybe you switch to another tool when there's an update that comes out that's going to kind of upskill everything. Alicia, can you just share the
skills? Like focus on the skills that you need to use those. I know this isn't about data storytelling, but it is kind of, because we learned the skills today of doing this, whatever tool, whatever method, you can apply this. And AI can help boost, but just focus on what are the skills of the thing I need to do, and what are the skills of using AI well, and then you can start applying it to different tools.
Can you just say again the name of the book and the author that you showed earlier?
Yes. And it's in our, I'm going to just go back here. So Storytelling with Data, it's Cole Nussbaumer Knaflic. And she's got a great team. They have lots of workshops, and I've learned so much from her. She's got this is just the basic one that kind of goes through a lot of the principles that we talked about today, but then she's got several follow-up books. This one's like a practice book. She's got another one I've got over there on before and after. So she's just got some great resources.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay. And then we have a question here. This is a really interesting question. How would you explain the use of income from an endowment to a board that sees the endowment balance and wants to use the principal instead of the annual 4 to 5% draw?
Oh,
So,
well,
well, first of all, there should be some policies or contracts or whatever surrounding that
mhm,
endowment. There should be a
mhm.
board policy if it wasn't kind of a gift in that sense.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times you can't use the principal. That's kind of
Yes.
that's the purpose of the endowment. It's or
Yes.
it's there only to be used in very extreme
Correct.
circumstances or very
Uh-huh.
specific circumstances that should be
Mhm,
very clearly defined.
mhm.
Um, so that would be my recommendation. First of all,
Yeah.
you should really go back to the policy or the
Mhm,
documentation
mhm.
um,
I would
there.
also think about the financial
Yeah.
statements. How does it impact it? And then just really kind of, I think of discrete graphics. Sometimes one of the things I see us do is we try to tell like 4 stories in one chart. And really think about sometimes you need to tell a story over multiple charts. So you could have one on, like I could think of a line chart showing the balance of the endowment going down or up, especially breaking up maybe a stacked, like an area chart, which is kind of like a line chart, but it's kind of the groupings of the line. So what part is the balance? What part is the growth
Mhm.
versus the decline? That could be something. Yeah, I feel like I've played with this a few times. Jen, can you think of any visualizations in particular as that come to mind?
So yeah, well, when you just mentioned kind of that stacked bar, I mean, how I've
Mhm.
kind of shown components of cash before, and specifically restricted and unrestricted cash, which this might tie into that.
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
have just used a donut, and it's
Yes.
been very easy to
Yeah.
understand because you're
There's so
really
much
just
to be said
highlighting
there.
that
Mhm.
one piece, and then
Yeah.
you can do a headline and kind of tell your story based on that.
Yeah.
So when I
I
think
might need to
about where
play
I
with
use
this and
it,
make a
that would
post
have
on this.
been yeah, that would have been the type of chart.
Yeah, we should take this as a challenge. And
Yes.
maybe others want to post too. I'll put it on I'll put something on LinkedIn. Maybe you do too. What if we just
Yeah.
tried to come up with a data set and see what
Yes.
kinds of things we could come up with? This could be a lot of
Yeah.
fun.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah,
Anybody,
I
I
would
don't know
love
if
to do
anybody's still in the room, but if you're up for it, give a thumbs up and I'll send you
that. Yes. Do
we'll
you want
find
to
it.
see us
Well,
play around with that?
yeah.
Um,
We'll try
we
to do
have another,
something on LinkedIn.
yes, we have another question here, and this is one that we had actually gone back and forth on a lot
Mhm.
on the chart. So this is just going back to our example. Is there a reason you aren't showing what the cumulative shortfall is? Wouldn't that
Yes.
help them understand what the gap they need to fill is? And we talked about this a
Yes.
lot.
We've talked long and hard about
We
this.
really debated over this.
Do you want to share? Do you want to share on why? I keep
Yeah,
pointing
well,
back.
I think the key that we were really trying to show was that trend because we
It's
were
right.
looking at year over
Yes.
year data, and
Yes.
we really wanted to show what that difference was visually
Mhm.
over the 3 years over a certain number of months. So I
Yes.
mean that was really what it came down to when we were trying to pick the right chart that was going to
Mhm.
convey that we thought would best convey that one
Yeah.
big idea and the story that we wanted to share. And we
Yeah.
just kept going back to the line chart, but then wanted to add some of the wording in there to kind of help
Mhm.
explain what that
Yeah.
shortfall was. So
You know
that's
what I
really
think is helpful is a
came down
second
to it.
chart to go with it. Like, I wonder if we
Yeah.
maybe add this to the deck neck if we ever do this again. But like, you could show a forecasted total versus the others total as a second
Mhm.
chart that also helps illustrate here's the trend, but then here's a horizontal bar chart that shows the 3 years
Yes,
side by side and how it's going down. So you could see both.
you
I
can see
think
that.
both
I was just
great.
thinking that.
Yeah.
Yeah, 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 yeah. We turned that table into the horizontal bar
Mhm.
chart, and then we
Mhm.
could show that as well. Yeah,
Mhm. That's
I
really
agree. I
interesting.
think
The whole
I think we need
exercise
to
was
add a
showing
slide.
cluttering.
Yeah,
It's showing how you're taking clutter out. So that was kind of why we used that. But um,
yeah,
when you decide the chart and the graphics, we really got to play God and do whatever we wanted to the data, which is a lot of fun.
yeah.
But I think that's a good point.
Okay, I think we've gotten through rest of the questions here. Yeah, someone also commented, I always tell my students that a table or figure is a big help in telling the story about their research. Absolutely. That's great.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Um,
Yeah, tables are great. I love adding some visual elements to a table. We didn't get to talk too much about this, but there's a really lovely free resource, and I didn't include this on the slide deck, so this will be a freebie for anybody who stayed late. It's called Data Wrapper, DATAWRAPPER. It's out of Denmark, I believe, but it is a free data visualization tool. And it's the same tool that you'll see in like Washington Post and New York Times and a lot of other news outlets will use. You'll recognize when you go into it that it looks really similar. It's a little bit tricky to kind of understand the interface, but once you do, you can really use it to make awesome charts. And I love it for its tables. It has gorgeous outlines for tables, and you can add bar charts in it. So the one that you saw on the deck, it's made with Data Wrapper. I have not found Excel to be really good at its bar chart tables. I just think they look terrible. They look like Excel, so I don't use them. But other than that, everything I built today was in Excel. It was not any other fancy tool.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks for sharing that. And that was the tool that we learned first when we were learning, when we did all of our data visualization training with Mark Jones, who leads our financial reporting department and team. And he and others taught me how to use Data Wrapper. And that was where I learned. Someone said here, I thought this was just a really nice comment. They said, I finally have a good finance committee who reviews the details and has been able to help me provide really pared down, targeted info to the full board that they've been able to understand much better. Their eyes used to glaze over with all the big reports and Excel sheets with multiple I had. That's awesome. And that's amazing. And I can't recommend that enough. Like finding the right board members, especially for your finance committee, people who do this for a living, who have that expertise, who have experience with how to prepare reports and visuals in that way. They're going to be such an asset to have for your board.
It's interesting just to come back to that board question, because I know that one came out about like board giving, but I just think like getting a wide variety of board members. I think sometimes we get board members who can financially give, but I just think of all of these communities, they really need representation, especially if you are in a community and serving a marginalized group, especially, you need representatives from them helping shape the direction of that organization. And there's so many ways that they can still give. And just tying this back to data storytelling, if you can be clear with your story and you can make this accessible for them, they can engage with it. A regular person, I'm loving all the thumbs up. I think your thumbs up being around the same time. A regular person should be able to access what you're talking about. And yes, you can have more dense financial statements or whatever, but like that, why shouldn't that be our goal? That any kind of person, whether because we get board members, they like come from finance or like big organizations and they retire and they come join these boards. They are awesome and we need them. But we also need the everyday person too, probably. And I'm thinking of certain organizations that I work closely with. I can't imagine the boards not including the people from the communities. And
we need absolutely.
What do you think?
And it's even more important to be able to present the data in a way that is really easily, very easy to understand. Just one question here. What is the best chart for presenting the ebbs and flows of a cash flow projection and the need to draw on the line of credit? So Alicia, I actually created a graphic, with the help of Mark Jones, for one of my clients in my early days at YPTC, where we essentially, it's kind of hard trying to think of the best way to describe this, but we basically had a line showing our kind of 90 days of operating cash that we wanted to make sure that we had on hand. And then we showed shading, in terms of our cash flow projections. And then we would also show our reserves by shading. And then you could see when we were going to dip down into our reserves or where there was the potential that we were. I don't know if maybe that's a graphic we could potentially share. But that was
it's on our website. If
yes,
you go,
yes, it is.
check
I think it is on. Yeah, I think it's on the data, the showcase.
It might even be Jen.
Yeah, yes, that might, yes, it might be, but that would definitely be the one that I would recommend for that. It's a great graphic for that, and that was created in Data Wrapper.
Awesome.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we are at 10:15 or 10:16 now. So yeah, but thank you everybody who stayed with us and for all your questions.
Yes, would love to follow your journeys, and thanks for your time. Thanks for time on a busy day. I hope this was helpful.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, it was great. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.